Thanks, Alex, and thanks everyone for joining us this evening. As Alex mentioned, my name is Carolyn Flowers. I'm the Playing Formats Manager here at England Rugby, and today we'll be speaking to you about age grade T1 rugby in your clubs. So hopefully that's what everyone joined us this evening for. And if not, I'm sure hopefully everyone will find something very interesting out of it. Anyways, I'm not going to ask Joe to come off mute, but I am just going to quickly introduce Joe who'll be speaking to us a bit later. Joe has joined us from Scunthorpe this evening and will be telling us a bit about their thoughts and plans on T1 rugby age grade in a little bit. But some of the other stuff that will be this evening, what I'll do is I'll chat through all the things we're going to go through, and at the end we'll have some Q&A. Like I said, please feel free to drop stuff in the chat as we go along. And if I think possibly it might be best to find it right then and there. I believe we also have Karen Taylor, although I can't see who's on the call right now. I believe we also have Karen Taylor joining us, who is our National Growth Manager, and she will be in the chat as well, hopefully able to answer some of those questions along the way. I currently can't see the chat box, so please direct any questions to those who can. So what we'll be going through tonight. So we're going to go through a little bit of what is T1 Rugby. Hopefully everyone who's on the call already has an idea of what T1 Rugby is, but we're going to cover it very briefly, and I'm also going to show you where you can get links to find out more information, all the resources. We're going to cover off regulations and suggestions behind these regulations. Then we're going to hear from the lovely Joe about what the plans are, as I said, and thoughts and ideas for T1 Rugby at Scunthorpe are. Hopefully this will give everyone a little bit of idea of perhaps what they can do at their club, or maybe it resonates with you as to why you're on this call. We're going to talk about your playing environment and offer. I have a lovely analogy, and for those who know me, I love an analogy, so we're going to go through that. And again, once again, that's going to take us through some of the things we should be thinking about when we're looking at our age grade offer in clubs. And then we're going to have our questions and discussion time. So hopefully that is all very clear and makes sense, and we'll crack on. So what is T1 Rugby? Again, I won't go through this in too much detail because hopefully everybody on the call has a very good idea of it, but it is England Rugby's non-contact version of rugby union, and it includes many of the key elements of the 15-a-side game. You'll find that I won't read all the things that are on the slide. The slide will be sent out later. And again, like I said, we'll show you where the links are to all this information as well, so you can pick it up as much as you want if you already don't, or if you don't know, but if you want to know more. So T1 Rugby is designed to be easy and fun to deliver, very accessible. It removes a lot of barriers for people to enter the game, which gives you an opportunity to introduce more people to the game and increase engagement. And T1 Rugby is a format of rugby in its own right, and not just a route to contact rugby. We do have often people who will go from non-contact to contact, but if you know me, I love certain phrases, and for me, that is a happy byproduct. It's not something we're doing on purpose, but we do often see it, and so it is a format in its own right, and not just something that we're using as a transition tool. The good thing about T1 is it can be played on pretty much any surface, grass, AGP, muggas, indoor halls, so wherever you've got the space, as you can see at the bottom, whatever your pace, whatever your space, so you can play with or without at walking pace or running. So what we've done is we've taken all the non-contact variations and we've put them back under T1 Rugby. So again, what to provide at your club. Obviously, it's not common for age grade rugby that you'd be looking to do it at all. However, we have found when it comes to introducing people to T1 Rugby and getting people to a level of understanding with the rules, sometimes starting at walking pace to a run pace actually really does help. Again, I won't go through absolutely everything that's on these slides, but hopefully we're giving a bit of a brief outline. I'll actually put this one up for a second. It does go over the basic rules, but what I'll do is just give that a moment for everyone to see, but what I'm going to do is talk about the adaptations. So it can be mixed gender and mixed ages. However, you need to provide that all the RFU regulations are the pitch size, the team size, the match length. This can all be adjusted depending on what you're looking to deliver with your age grade participants. So with that in mind, rules such as kicking can be removed, scrums and lineouts can also be removed until the participants are confident. So if you're looking to build up to a full game of T1 Rugby, these are all applicable things. You just basically have to adjust it to what is suitable for your participants. I was only going to touch briefly on the kind of what is T1 Rugby, but if you want to know more or if you're looking for our resources, I've got a little image snippet there of what the website looks like. You can see all the different resources we have there. That's the link there on the screen. Again, these slides will be shared later. I also have the link to World Rugby's full version of the rules, which are quite extensive, but if you want to go and do a deep dive, you can do that. And I know that Alex, or I believe Alex will be popping these in the chat, so you can have access to them and peruse them at your leisure. So I'll just, before we get on to the regulations and suggestions, just take a moment to see that if anything has come through in chat that should possibly be answered as a question now, otherwise we will crack on.
You're good to crack on, Caroline.
Amazing,
nothing in the chat so far.
Thank you. So I've titled this Regulations and Suggestions for a very specific reason, and hopefully that will come to light in just a second. So one of the biggest questions we get asked when it comes to age grade T1 rugby specifically is, are you allowed to group ages? And the simple answer is yes. And the reason we've added this as suggestions is because it is not mandatory to group your age grade T1 rugby participants in this manner, but feedback has shown that it does give the participants a better experience. It often aligns with skill level or speed or size in general. So again, not mandatory, but these particular age bandings also align with what we are doing in schools as well. I'll touch on that briefly in a minute. Well, it says there, also aligns with schools, colleges, and again, so if you've got young people who are learning T1 rugby in schools through our new Allianz Kickstart program, these are the rough ages and key stages that they'll be working within. So it gives them, again, that consistency when they get to the club environment. Regulations. So it needs to be taken with a grain of salt. So keeping the above age bandings considered, all other regulations apply to T1 rugby. However, now I've actually got this regulation memorized because it's kind of my anchor, but 15.6.2 states that players of all ages and both sexes may train and play together in non-competitive, non-contact rugby, provided the conditions below it are met. I won't read those out, but the big one there is that the organizer has assessed the session and it's safe for all players. And that under no circumstances is any contact element involved. We do understand that non-contact T1 rugby does involve a touch tackle, but that should be the extent of it. There's no grappling, there's no pulling. I can't think of the term where you do that step up into contact where you grab the shirts, but there's none of that. It is simply a touch tackle. There shouldn't be any other format of contact involved in these. When we say the organizer or coach has assessed the session and it's non-competitive, a lot of questions come up as to why, A, what does that mean? And B, what needs to be in place. So non-competitive, well, let's go with assess the session to start with. Assess the session means that you must look at the rules and the equipment being used and adjust it, adapt it, and provide that for the youngest age participant or the most at-risk participant. So if you have a young person who should be playing with a size 3 ball, but you also have an age grade player who should be playing with a size 4 ball, you need to be using the size 3 ball. This then links back to the idea of one of those age banding ideas. So if you know that you have to make certain adaptations such as removing kicking or changing the ball size or changing the tone of the match, that links to the idea that perhaps those older players aren't going to get the same wonderful experience as they would if they were able to play with the correct size ball or include kicking or the other rules that may apply. This also goes for any other mixing of ages in terms of if you're doing a family event where you have like a barbecue and the families are playing, everything has to be aligned and assessed to the most at-risk player. Hope that makes sense. The other question we get is, what is competitive? It's a bit of a loose term. However, what I always say is anytime there is an ability to win. So if there's point scoring or if it's a round robin where somebody is the winner of that round robin, as in they've won enough matches, or if it's Yeah, kind of anything along those lines where people might get that buzz where they want to, be the best or do better, and that might put somebody at risk. That's what I deem non-competitive. However, again, it's a bit of a vague thing. So what you need to do as an organizer or coach or deliverer, or what we tend to say is the person managing the session, is you need to manage the tone of that session. So whether that's a conversation with people prior to ensure that everyone is in the understanding of what the rules state, or kind of what the outcome of the match is, like this is a family match, we've got young people playing, etc., then we do expect and hope that the organizer will manage the session appropriately and keep people, perhaps take a pause in the match if someone's getting overexcited or anything like that, to maintain that non-competitive environment. Again, hopefully that makes sense. This is where we do tend to get the most number of questions, so I'm understanding that probably we'll get a few in the chat for this, but do feel free to drop them in. And then, as you've probably seen by now, training. There is no mandatory training for T1 rugby. However, any adults in volunteer positions will need to be DBS, need to have their current DBS. Again, there are while there's no official training or mandatory training, on the previous slide, one of 2 or 3 slides ago, hopefully you will have seen that we do have lots of resources in terms of how to deliver T1 rugby, the rules of T1 rugby, getting started. We also have stage 1 resources, our MegaFest documents we can send out after this as well. And the reason those two documents in particular are key is, as I referenced, we have our Alliance Kickstart program, which we're delivering in 1,500 schools now. So hopefully we're breeding lots of brilliant young T1 rugby players. Stage 1 resources and the MegaFest documents are what we built the Alliance Kickstart program off of. So we've got lots of resource going in schools, got lots of that going on. Hopefully when the students come to the club to become club age grade T1 rugby players, there's no difference in what we're asking our clubs to deliver to what we're asking our schools to deliver. We've just packaged it up in a more kind of teacher language speak, made it really easy for them to deliver, so that when the players come, you have the exact same resources, the exact same games, and everything else is just in a club package instead of the school's package. Just take a moment. As I said, I'm not going to go too deep into all the other regulations, as we know that could be a case-by-case example. So if there is something specific that's coming through, please let me know. I'll probably say this several times tonight, but a lot of what we discuss and a lot of non-contact T1 rugby questions and cases are quite club specific. I'm always available if you want to pick up via email if you think the question might be niche to your club. However, if you think it's applicable to everyone, then please do feel to drop it in. But at any time, you can always email me and just ask, and I'm sure it's something we've encountered before, and we can get you an answer or work you through it. So what got here, hopefully you've seen this at some point, both the in-season activity, as you can see, non-contact is there, and you're allowed to train at all times, and you can have matches and competitions, and you'll also see that in the out-of-season summer activity guide. Granted, this was a couple of years ago, but I can promise you it still applies to this year. You can see non-contact, see my cursor on the screen. But as you can see, through May, June, July, and August, you are also allowed in T1 rugby throughout the summer. So hopefully you can understand that within all regulations, T1 rugby can be played at any time during the year, both in season and out of season, or summer activity. Just before I jump on, Alex, I'll just see if Alex comes off.
No questions still.
Oh, it's a first. Maybe they're all just wanting to email me. I completely understand. For those of you who haven't actually had a chance to speak to via a call yet, or if we've just chatted over email, please to keep being with me with any of the questions. I've had a lot. Hopefully, I've tried to answer all of these as I've been speaking to people. You've given me a lot of good ideas in terms of what people are looking to understand. So please do keep asking me those questions if you need to. So moving on to the playing environment. Again, for those who know me, I love an analogy. And this might be my most recent favorite analogy, which I lovingly have termed the fish tank analogy. And as it says on the says on the tin, it is an analogy about putting a fish in a fish tank. So we have our fish. I'm not trying to I'm not trying to make this silly or anything. I do genuinely believe this is a lovely way of looking at how we can make our players comfortable in our club or playing opportunity settings. So we have our lovely fish, and in other, depending on the audience, I do tend to ask people to name the fish. I currently do not have a name for this fish. But Alex, you're helping me on the call today, so our fish is named Alex. This fish is currently in the education or non-rugby setting. So as I said before, we've got our Alliance Kickstart program in schools. So perhaps this fish has been doing the Alliance Kickstart program at their primary school, and they're starting to think, I love this. I want to do some more of it. The question is, how do we get this Alex to our playing environment? So the first thing I think we're going to think of is the link to the club. So whether they're in a school or any other environment, how do we develop that link to the club so that they're having an awareness of where the club is, what times your sessions are on, what should they expect, etc. Again, building that link, getting the fish in the little baggie and ready to bringing them over into our club environment. So once we've got the idea that they know where the club is, etc., we then have to start thinking about getting those players. And again, as we're talking about age grade, we've added guardians because we know that they make a lot of the decisions for young people, and they drive, they give up time and everything else. So it's not just the players we need to encourage into our clubs, it's the guardians. So how are we then getting them to start move their way towards the club, keeping them in their, they're in their little safe bag there, but we're moving them over as best we can. So again, another thing we need to consider when we're thinking of our playing environment. Then, as anyone who has ever owned a fish knows, if we take that fish and just drop them in the tank, they're going to die. And poor Alex, we don't want Alex to die. But in this analogy, what we're considering here is giving a player that sense of belonging at the club. They're getting acclimatized. They're starting to realize, it ain't so bad here. I quite like it. I might be ready to kind of stay here without, being the fish that gets dumped in a tank. And then lastly, our fish is in the tank. They love it here. They're happy as Larry. They've got their new bowl and they're continuing on their T1 rugby journey at your club. So putting it into more of club speak, club language, and breaking it down into the different parts of this journey, we have to look at how can we support clubs to create that healthy playing and offer environment. And hopefully tonight is one of the first steps in doing that. Next, we have to look at how we can support the player journey. So what is that idea where we can think they were at school or they were in another environment? How do we support that journey where they feel comfortable going, yes, I'd like to be at the club now. This is, something I'd like to do next. How do we acclimatize the participants and foster that sense of belonging? What are we doing at the club that's making these events, sessions, festivals, whatever it might be, special? One of the previous example we had is perhaps Alex the fish doesn't want to be alone. Perhaps Alex the fish wants to travel over with, some of the other schoolmates. How can we encourage that? And how can we then make all those participants feel safe and a sense of belonging in their new environment? And then lastly, as you can see, we've got Alex out of the bag, happy in the tank. So how do we keep participants engaged at the club? So again, my favorite analogy, throughout everything, it just breaks down those different key aspects of what we're looking to do and how, again, the RFU can support along the way. So on that note, I've kept this as icons because, again, every club's needs are different. And for anyone who's worked in any format of non-contact, but specifically T1 rugby, as I've said before, a lot of these are case-by-case examples. What are your club's needs? What are the outcomes you are looking for? What are your participants' needs? And that can be very different across all our different clubs. So we look for what has worked a lot across lots of different places and what are ideas and previous wins. And one thing to really be considered. So Firstly, language used. So, what we want to ensure is that T1 rugby, being a format in its own right, players and participants are treated as it is a format in its own right. So, look to avoid, where possible, language where it says contact rugby is proper rugby, or if you're playing, and hopefully you'd like to consider options such as using weekdays instead of the traditional Sunday or Saturday formats, but you don't then use language such as, real rugby is played on a Sunday, but we're really glad to have you here for this non-contact version, etc. So just be mindful of how you speak of the format, because what we don't want to do is have those participants think that they are somehow not as much of a rugby player as those who do play contact rugby. The rest of the items on the screen are previous wins and ideas that we've had that have really, really worked well in the past. So, family sessions and events. So, a lot of the time, our age grade sessions, and actually this links to the Friday Night Lights concept as well. We have a few clubs who do Friday Night Lights. And what we've found with their T1 rugby sessions, they turn them into a family session, but they don't mix the adults and the children. So they have age grade participants will play from about 5:30 till 5:15. They then go to the clubhouse or stand at the sides. They have sausage or pizza or whatever it might be, as you can see, pizza nights, etc. And that's when the adults play. So it becomes a family event of the evening. So everyone's there. We found that this actually boosts volunteer participation as well. So adults who are playing T1 rugby with their kids will then often offer to help manage the T1 rugby sessions. And it really just gets that kind of family environment together, and it expands the night. As you can see, we've had lots of success with girls only events. We really want to ensure that we are getting mixed T1 rugby at this point. However, we have had really, really good success with our Try Love Rugby, excuse me, I say T1 rugby too often, and all of our different 6 to 12 initiatives where we had lots of young girls playing T1 rugby. I've mentioned the Friday Night Lights, but overall, you can see that having the bar and clubhouse open for drinks, tea, coffee, not only brings money into the club, but also creates that environment that people want to be in. If you are looking to run these sessions throughout the summer, which I know many are, barbecue, pizza nights, etc., anything you can do to make that a welcoming environment, something where it's not just about going and playing T1 rugby, but expanding it so it really gets that sense of belonging behind it. We've also had clubs do watch parties. So if you're looking at Lions Tour, Six Nations, anything like that, loads of clubs will do T1 rugby beforehand, then everyone goes in the clubhouse and watches the match together. And again, because you can have age grade playing next to adults, it fosters that one big club environment. And as always, DJ some music. I don't think we've ever had a season where music, DJs, anything that can add that kind of atmosphere to the sessions hasn't gone down exceedingly well. And in the past, for lots of different reasons, we've even had online DJ sessions where people joined online and had a really good time, but we carried that outside to create that sense of belonging. Again, it works wonders just to get the atmosphere, to get it lively, and to get people involved. And those are a lot of the things that we've found in the past might work for the clubs who may be looking to start their age grade T1 rugby sessions. I'm actually going to pause here. Title slide for you, Joe. I'd like to go back and introduce Joe from Scunthorpe, Joe Drapier from Scunthorpe. I'm not sure if Joe's video is working, so I'm going to pop myself on mute for a second. Joe, if you'd like to introduce yourself and have a little chat about your thoughts on T1 Rugby and why you think Scunthorpe is looking at it and what you're looking at in terms of the next steps and stuff. I will just put myself on mute and say thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Carolyn, and hello, everybody down the line. So as Carolyn introduced me, I'm Joe Drapier. I am the current one of the under-8s coaches at Scunthorpe Rugby Club. For those who don't know, we're based in North Lincolnshire, so just below the River Humber and just above Lincoln. We fall within the NLD constituent body. And a bit about our club, we've got around 400 registered players here at Scunthorpe, and around, I want to say 240, 250 of those are age grade players. So like I said, I'm one of the coaches at the under 8s age group. My son Stanley plays, hence why I've sort of got roped into to support. And at the under 8s, we've got around 28 registered players. Obviously, that fluctuates in terms of availability each week, but we're quite a thriving age group at the club. I suppose why T1 and what we're planning at Scunthorpe. So we are in the early stages with regards to T1, and what we're looking to create, and I'll sort of share first of all what our proposal is and what we're looking to do this year and next season, and I'll share sort of like the reasons why and sort of why have we come to this point. So we're proposing to create a non-contact pathway, so predominantly a T1 pathway at the club. So I suppose the reasons why is over the years, and you may have seen at your club, the transition from under 8s to under 9s, so going from tag rugby into contact, we do see players drop out. We do see that churn of players who, they've really enjoyed the tag aspect. It's what they played at school. It's what they came to the club for. But when it turns into the contact element, whether it's sort of frightening for them, that the confidence isn't there yet. So we lose. So we've seen sort of year on year, we lose a sort of a tranche of players. And I see that in Stanley now at the under 8s is his confidence in terms of playing contact. I think there's probably, I want to say maybe a quarter, maybe a third of players within the age group who we're thinking as coaches lack that confidence yet in terms of being able to do tackle. And obviously we've not gone into tackle, any training yet, but we sort of get a sense that we think we may lose them. So we started a schools program last year in going in sort of year 4 and year 5 within a number of local primary schools delivering tag, which again, brilliant, and really engaging. However, when it comes to inviting them to the club, we're getting some come through, but again, because they've done tag at school and it's contact at the club, again, feedback that we're getting is, I thought it was tag rugby when we were going to come down. So again, we're losing people coming through the, I suppose, those school age groups. So what we're looking at doing is, as the nights get lighter this spring, the under 8s, because we've got such large numbers as well, is we're looking at not splitting the team, but giving a different offer. When we start to go from tag to tackle in terms of training, we will offer T1 as an option. So we will offer or to continue that non-contact offer. Sort of letting parents know that actually, if they don't want their little Johnny to go into tackle straight away, there's another option as well. So we will run sort of parallel training midweek. So it won't be part of the Sunday mornings. We're going to do it midweek. So they'll still do the tag on a Sunday morning. So we'll do midweek training where we're going to do T1. And, whoever wants to do it will be able to do that tag to tackle. We will look to do, I suppose, a celebration event in the summer, like sort of Carolyn mentioned around, how do we sort of corral everybody around? Everybody likes the warmer summer nights, the barbecue sort of vibe, getting everybody around, sort of introduce, well, what is it, what we're trying to do. So we'll do it gently with the training with the under 8s, festival event in terms of for the whole club, just to understand the concept of what we're trying to do. And then from September, we will look to run a parallel T1 offer. We do expect, so obviously I'm part of the coaching team at the moment at under 8s, so under 9s, we will work together as the coaching teams to sort of transition those players to and from. It's, we sort of see it as, is it cyclical, or, that constant movement of, players who want to do contact, of course, get yourself down, get yourself to whatever we call ourselves. We've not thought of the names yet, but and vice versa, is we would expect anybody who either goes into the contact sessions and thinks, right, I really sort of fancy doing T1, would expect the same. So that's what we're doing. We'd look to train, obviously, initially in, like I said, parallel to the under nines. We'd look to create, so I suppose the reason why I mentioned we're in sort of NLD is look within, I suppose, the clubs closest to us, NLD, Yorkshire, to see if anybody else is doing it, because actually it'd be great to sort of invite other teams, not necessarily competitive as Carolyn was stating earlier, but to look at, can we create some sort of friendly festivals, some friendly games, because that's, the players have enjoyed or do obviously enjoy that element. So why we think it'll work, we think it will reduce the drop off at under nines. We think it'll keep players at the club for longer. We think it will allow them, I suppose, to grow in confidence more, if they do want to go into that contact element. But we also know that we want to create a clear pathway that actually, if T1 is your sport, is your version of the game that you will want to play going into adulthood, then we want to create that space as well. So it's not, even though I mentioned it's a stepping stone, it's not that thing of, contact is the be all and end all, and that's what we want. We want you to be happy in whichever environment, and then and we want to make sure that we, I suppose, with the schools program as well, that it's clear that, like with the school, that we've got clear offers for contact and non-contact, and we think that will probably help in their decision whether it's to signpost to us, etc. I think there are some, I would say, negatives, considerations that we know we need to think about. Our pitch space is really limited at the club. We've got 2 sites. Sunday mornings are, I say, horrendously busy, but obviously it's great because we've got large numbers. But we need to sort of decide, when do we do T1? Do we make it as part of the Sunday morning activities? Again, it'll be very tight. Or do we make it a different sort of midweek activity? Still to be decided. I think we're still, deciding on that. When do we deliver it as well? So there's a debate between, do we create it into a more, in the summer months or in the better weather? Do we make it sort of a stark difference between, the contact game and T1? It's got its pros and cons, because I think if we're wanting to run it parallel and work together about that, transitioning between the two, we're probably erring on of sticking with the same season. We need to obviously align with the schools program, and I think our plans are quite aspirational, but we need to make sure that we bring the workforce along with us. So really, we're creating another section, another sort of, mini junior, we're making another section of the club. So we need to make sure that we, have the volunteer workforce to support it. So that's it. That's what we're looking at doing here at Scunny. If there's any questions from anybody.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. I will actually just pause for a second to see if Alex has any specific questions. But while we're waiting to see if any come through, it is, you've just highlighted so many of the brilliant things about T1 rugby, but also that idea that, if you want to do it in the summer months, brilliant. We could see that being that opportunity to really build up that player pool for, but like you say, see how it goes in terms of what you could do for the rest of the year. Is it a Monday and Tuesday weekday off or night, or do you have capacity to run it parallel? But the option is up for you guys, and it'll be great to see how you guys work it in the future and what works for you, because we're always looking to take learnings, and we're always looking to see what works best for some people and what works best for others. And it's really exciting to see how this might come across. Alex?
Not specific for you, Joe, but I think you can get involved with this as well. So we have had some questions come in now. I'm just going to group a couple together. So Carolyn, there's a question from Nicola. Can we run T1 festivals in the summer for age grade?
Absolutely. So T1 rugby is a 365 format. You can run T1 Rugby festivals in the summer, in the autumn, in January, if you really want to give that one a go, whenever you want to do it. Absolutely. A lot of the amplifications we showed on the previous slide, with the suggestions and considerations, etc., do often lend themselves to summertime, but that doesn't mean they can't be extended across the year. But yes, if you want to do a summer festival with a barbecue and bouncy castles and anything else you want to amplify to it, music, outdoor party, outdoor cinema, you could do any of that. So the options are all there for you.
Excellent. And there's another question, Gareth, around festivals. Is there a list of festivals anywhere that they could link in with?
So right now we don't have a current list of festivals. However, anytime that we hear of them, we are promoting them on our T1 Rugby social channels. And anytime I hear of them, I'll also pop them in our Facebook group, which I can add the link to the follow-up email later. But I believe if you just search T1 Rugby on Facebook, you should come up on us. There is no official defined list at the time, but we are always looking to promote and share where possible.
Fantastic. Ellie's asking, what is the maximum age? Is there a maximum age at all?
There is absolutely no maximum age. However, I suppose for the purposes of this call, the age grade T1 Rugby, I suppose that would end as we come out of age grade. However, no, there is no maximum age for T1 Rugby. We have T1 Rugby people who play walking T1 Rugby. Not that you have to play walking when you're of the upper ages, but no, there's no maximum age for T1 Rugby. But if you are considering, I just want to highlight this one more time, if you are considering mixing adult and age grade, we need to be very, very careful about applying regulation 15.6.2 to make sure that it is not competitive, which I think that's probably going to lead into another question, Alex.
Yeah, I think so. There was a question from Nancy about wondering if both sexes work. So obviously I think she means like mixing together. What are your thoughts on that? And I think, Joe, maybe your thoughts would be good on this one as well.
Joe, did you want to kick off and then I can give some more context?
Yeah, I think so. I suppose at our age group, we have 8 female players. Not all of the, I think it works in terms of tag, or it is working in terms of tag. I think it will work better as T1. I think we will encourage, again, whether it's more the schools link. I think I didn't state at the beginning, but I am a touch player, or I should say T1, well, old touch player. And I run or have run in the past a number of sort of social leagues here in Scunny over the summer, adult social leagues. And I think we have a great sort of mix in terms of male and female participants, again, because you don't have the contact element. You need good referees, I think, in terms of making sure that you sort of instill it, if it is competitive anyway, that you sort of instill in those rules. And we have a great mix of we create it as a rule in terms of the 4-2, or have done in terms of when we played 6-a-side, doing the 4-2 rules. So you either have 4 females or 4 males versus 2, and it works. So yeah, sorry, I've gone off into adult, not age grade T1.
Brilliant.
No,
Caroline, thoughts?
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. I mean, you've touched on so many of the points already, but yeah, we've absolutely found that mixing genders is actually really beneficial, particularly in the age grade space, because it's really lovely to see the initial thoughts of how it might work in terms of gameplay, and then the young girls absolutely skinning somebody, and then within a week or two, everyone realizes they are one big giant team, and it's a lovely little mix of people together. I agree with Joe in terms of again, managing those sessions and making sure that all the participants are aware of how they should be working with each other and everything else. The other benefit, I suppose, is for T1 Rugby, a lot of clubhouses don't even have to open their change rooms, so you don't have to worry about, your change room capacity. They show up ready to go, they play, and that's it. You're not worried about, anything on top of that. So there's no issues in terms of genders and change room capacities. We do find that it is just as competitive, just as effective. And again, because you can mix the genders, you don't have to worry about if you have enough numbers. As Joe mentioned, Scunny choose to have a 4-2 rule. That is not mandatory. You don't have to have minimum numbers. You don't have to say, in fact, you may choose to, but I actively encourage not giving girls double points if they score a try. Particularly the young girls find it a bit offensive. So that's a consideration again. But it may, if you have a conversation with your players and that's something that they think should be in place, that's up to you. But we don't mandatory say you have to have a certain number of girls, a certain number of boys. And we do find that mixing genders is really effective and creates a big one-team environment again.
Thanks very
Can I
much.
just add as well? I think there's, even though I think mixed teams are great. I think it's, I suppose, understanding, I suppose, your own players and whether or not a female only session might actually be a brilliant opportunity to bring others that might not necessarily get involved or want to get involved in a mixed session. So I suppose it's not one or the other, it's understanding sort of the needs and actually is there an opportunity to do both and actually see how it goes and sort of getting that feedback from your players.
Yeah, good point, Joe. And Karen just put in there about, there is a 4-week intro to Rugby for Girls available, built around T1 Rugby, and some links into the chat there. Another one just to note, Tim, thank you very much for putting in. Tim is one of the school rugby managers that's out there, and he thinks the plans are awesome. Partly because, it will make the transition because they're doing T1 rugby in schools. So when they come into the clubs, it makes it fantastic. And he just said, so many children and young people really love T1 rugby in the schools and festivals. So there's a real appetite for this as it continues to grow in schools. I've got one final question around Andrew, and then we'll move on, and we might pick up some more later. But Andrew's just putting around, 15.6.2. His understanding is exactly the same on his interpretation, and they have played T1 rugby with other families at the club in a non-contact, non-competitive environment, and really enjoyed it. However, some people have had some concerns over this and raised concern about, unintentional collisions, players of different sizes, ages. So do you have any advice, for Andy to go back and respond or mitigating the concern? How would you go about it?
Yeah, so I think back to that concept of case by case example, this is very much one of those cases, and you very much need to understand your participants and how certain participants or others may respond to things. So we are not, as always, saying you must do this, but if you are looking at it, some of the things to consider, as I mentioned before, we highly recommend that you manage the tone, you give expectations, and you maintain that throughout the match. So you gather everyone together, you explain if they know there's no score being kept, if it's a family match, then you just make that very, very clear. And if you see somebody who is kind of stepping out of that lane, just stopping, having quiet word, etc. If you're looking at quite young kids and families, let's say, we often suggest, and it's a suggestion again because it's not regulated, that if it's a family event, that the parents and the young people are on the pitch at the same time playing together, and that because everyone's on the same wavelength, everyone understands the assignment, everyone knows what's going on, that helps manage the tone. But it does come down to clear expectations, understanding if people are uncomfortable, then perhaps maybe it's not right for your participants. Maybe they could watch, maybe see that actually it's not going to get out of hand and there's not going to be any kind of inappropriate strength of contact, touching, etc. I do know that the family events go on and have gone on for as long as I've been with the RFU. So I know they are successful, but I do know that it does come down to how the club itself speaks to participants, sets expectations, and then manages those whilst the match is going on. It's not a one and done. It's definitely an ongoing thing to ensure that the young people are safe. Again, if it's a young person who needs to be using a size 3 ball, that whole pitch is playing with a size 3 ball. If it's a young person who, or an at-risk person where kicking would be inappropriate, take the kicking out. You need to make sure that whoever is the most at-risk player is being catered for. And that's where we find that if you have those players who want to be more competitive, you'll start seeing the natural divide, and clubs will say, right, we need to provide that competitive offer as well as the family social offer. And if you can give them that outlet and say, you shouldn't be here, you should be over here, out of the family zone, into the competitive zone. And that way you're trying to keep things separate. But again, speak beforehand, set the expectations, and then manage them consistently throughout the match in a respectful but concerted way.
Yeah. And as Joe was talking about, that sort of shows you how important the referee is, doesn't it, really, in making these environments correct. We'll leave the questions there. I've got some other ones that we'll pick up later on, but if you carry on, and I'll come back later.
Perfect. Thank you. I'll just reshare my screen. Just make it so I can actually see the buttons. Just before I crack on, Joe, thank you so much for your time there. If you can stick with us, I'm sure you'll be a bevy of information as well as more questions come in at the end, which we will have time for, as Alex has said. But I just want to talk through some of the next steps. And I actually found this image in a recent photo shoot we did, and I absolutely love it because I've seen this sign at every single club I've ever been to. And obviously, we would love to see T1 Rugby at every single club I've ever been to. So, in terms of next steps, so on the left-hand side of the screen, you're going to see what we are requesting and what we're suggesting. So the quick rundown is that we run a 6-week block of age grade T1 rugby sessions. As I said before, mixed gender, non-mixed gender, if you bucket your ages, that's all up to you. But the reason we suggest 6 weeks is because that's when we find the sticking point, that sense of belonging really starts to form. Kids are comfortable, they've made friends. All those different things that create that sense of belonging really do need a bit of a chunk of time. And we found that 6 weeks is a brilliant amount of time to get that going. And then you've got that pocket of players and you can look to your next steps after that. We also know on point 2 that people are looking for playing opportunities. So if you can host an event style playing opportunity, which is a festival, or even preferably a series of events, a series of events, whether it's, that there's teams near you who'd like to do local fixtures or anything like that, try and get those out, host the event, host those playing opportunities to give that kind of outlet for those young people looking for something that's not just a show up midweek, play a little and go home, it's something a bit more kind of amplified. That's where we talk about those barbecues, those DJs, music, movie nights, all of that. Registering your participants on GMS. I'll get lots of reasons for this, but also it helps our understanding of how T1 Rugby is landing within the community game, where it's being played. Back to that question about, do we have a list of festivals? It all starts with us understanding who's delivering and where they're delivering so we can start getting all that formed together as well. Also, if you can register any of your events on findrugby.com, that helps us as well understand what the landscape of the playing opportunities are. And then at the end, if you could help us by reporting on the detail, I've put things here like provision, participation numbers, and general experience. I really want to have a thick understanding of how things are going and how I can support, how we can support, what we can do in future, and how we can tweak it. So you'll probably be hearing from me directly, but it would be lovely if everyone can feedback on how things are going and what might be added, amended, changed, or basically made better in future to help everyone in terms of their delivery of T1 Rugby in the age grades section. On the other side, we've got our next steps, which are really have a think and consider what playing offer would best suit your club and your participants' needs. We've talked about it a lot today. We've said it's a club-by-club basis. We've talked about what's going to work for some clubs, what some clubs are thinking, some of the barriers or things people have had to overcome, whether it's pitch capacity or time of day or whether or not you're going to do a family session. Or again, we're looking at hopefully age grade specific sections here, but that doesn't mean you can't kick it off with a family session and then move on. So have a really good think about what playing offer would best suit your club, which day of the week it would work best. Fill in the expression of interest form, which includes a best delivery address for us to send you a flat pack of equipment. You'll see things like ball size, etc., depending on what age you're looking at delivering to. We do have some grant funding available for people looking to do their playing opportunities. Ideally, again, we'd like them to be a series of playing opportunities to really get lots of young people playing T1 Rugby. They would need to be age grade specific for that, but we have up to 225 clubs. So if you are looking to do an event or playing opportunity, please do add that to the expression of interest form with as much information as possible. You can fill in the box, or you can also, I've added an attachment where if you've got it on a piece document, you can drop that in as well. I'll take a look through. And then start promoting, once you've got it all in place, start promoting your age grade sessions on social media and be sure to include at T1 Rugby England so we can help in promotion. We've recently just this week linked up to adult female T1 Rugby teams for a fixture. So again, we want to help support, we want to promote, we want to, if you are choosing to run a festival, back to the idea of a festival list, we can, if you're adding us or you're emailing me, we can promote it, we can start listing it, we can get the word out, we can do all that. So at T1 Rugby England is both for Instagram and I always say Twitter, it's X, but make sure you're keeping us in the loop on that. And I believe Alex is going to drop the link to the expression form in the chat, but once the slides come through, the box on there is linked out as well. And those were the next steps. After that, it was just questions. I will be taking back down in just a sec. So we can get back in question time. Let me just unshare my screen. There we go. Sorry, before we go to questions, Joe, I love your camera because it's keeps focusing on you. It's a very main energy moment.
Yeah, I think when I was changing the settings, it's following me around, so it looks a bit sci-fi.
It's brilliant. Alex.
So we've got from Gareth, how do the boys or girls feel about scrumming against with the opposite sex, or would you not bother with scrums? What are your thoughts?
Oh, I have a very big thought on this. Joe, did you have anything you want to add, or because you're new into the realm of T1 Rugby?
I suppose we were trying to keep it as simple. So going into the under nines in terms of obviously the rules, and we were trying to make it as simple as possible. So we weren't or we're not going to include any sort of scrummaging.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. For those who are looking at including it, I would 100% include it for two reasons, and one's, I suppose, just a little nod to the idea of it is, one, it really does create that space on the pitch. It really does draw the players over, allowing for more kind of handling the ball, attacking play, and all the other brilliant things that come from a scrum. And the reason I say that the second piece, which is more of a nod, is there should be no issue with boys and girls because you don't actually need to touch each other. So in theory, you could have, I know you don't need to have the arms locked around. You don't need to have players actually touching. What you could do in that situation, if people are uncomfortable, again, this goes back to what your participants need, is you just need to have 3 people stand across from 3 people and the ball gets rolled in, and that's it. They don't need to wrap their arms around each other. They don't need to put their arms across. There's no pushing. There's no contest, anything like that. The ball goes straight in, back to the person who's going to pick it up and pass it off. So I would say that it does enable that more dynamic play that T1 Rugby can offer as opposed to, other variations of the sport. So that would be my 2 cents. Just if they don't feel comfortable touching each other, they don't have to. They just have to stand there as 3s. So
there's a real mix. And I went back in and I asked Tim Marshall, who's school rugby manager, who's doing this with kids all the time, and he's put as well that basically scrums aren't the same at all, in regards compared to the contact game. There's no contact other than outside players linking arms, so it's usually the way of restarting the game. So not a normal contest like at all. So really, hopefully that gives a bit of confidence there to that forward. We've got one from Derek. We've mentioned schools and clubs, but have we had much success with scout groups? And we have had lots of success with scout groups, haven't we? So I know Karen's just put something in, but what are your thoughts, Caroline?
Oh, we've had, all fair credit to all the scout groups, to Blake, to our partnerships team, to our growth team. The uptake in scouts, guides, and all of our other partners has been immense. And the clubs are actually seeing I don't say the benefit because it's a benefit they're playing anyways, but the links coming across from scouts and guides now as well into clubs are really starting to come on fourfold, I suppose, is the expression. We have, and Karen might be able to give the number because I won't guess at it, but we have a very high number of clubs who are now linked with scout groups and guide groups, providing kind of the back and forth of information, players, delivery, festivals, etc. I believe scouts are including it in their jamborees now, and we're looking at ways at which it can be kind of delivered across that whole sector. So loads of success in the scouts and guides.
Fantastic. And Karen just put in there, just that message, clubs could opt in to be partnered with a local scout group and girl guiding group as well. So definitely something worth looking at if you haven't looked at already there.
Just before we move on from scouts and guides as well, to once again re-emphasize, scouts, guides, and the Alliance Kickstart program are all based off the same resources. There's no difference. So the scouts have the Stage 1 and MegaFest resources. Alliance Kickstart is based off of Stage 1 and MegaFest resources. So what those young people are attending, coming to your club with their understanding of, you have access to. We've not changed anything. We're just repackaging it for the different environments it's being kept in.
Brilliant. And that finishes off the questions I've got there. Our last little call if anyone wants to put anything in. But Caroline, I'll hand over to you as we get to the end of the webinar.
Brilliant. Well, I will just take this moment then. We have managed to do this with 2 minutes to spare, which is absolutely brilliant. But I will take at least part of that minute to thank Joe. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Hearing a voice from a community rugby club talking about what their intentions, why, etc. And with the level of knowledge and understanding that you have, and I know you have because I've known you for a very long time now, it was very, very much appreciated. So I can't thank you enough for being here. And I really, really do look forward to hearing how things go and working and supporting you as we go through the next few months and hopefully years and years.
Yeah, cheers, Caroline. And I suppose thanks for giving me the opportunity to share. And I think if any, I suppose as we progress, it'd be great to sort of hear what other clubs are doing. So whether it's through forums like this or other forums, it'd be great because I think others will have sort of great learnings and things that we can take on board as well. So yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you. If that is everything, I will just make a nod to the idea that on April 20th, we have speaking of forums, on April 20th, we have all club T1 Rugby webinar, which is part of our season launch or peak season launch, as it were, as we move into our spring, summer seasons where it gets warmer, lighter, and we see a lot of T1 Rugby activity. So if anyone would like to join that, that will be where the conversation opens up further from age grade. But a lot of the information is quite similar, but you are more than welcome to join that. Everyone's welcome to join. And if there is interest to do kind of an end of summer into the autumn season forum, I'd be more than happy to host that and have everyone back together to have a more of an open forum discussion as opposed to me speaking for about 35 minutes and then Joe doing her wonderful work. So if anyone would like that, please feel free to email me and let me know and we can get that put together. I may or may not ask Alex to help out on that one. I think he's been so helpful tonight. So Alex, thank you so much as well for your help tonight. And thank you to Karen, who cannot come off mute, but thank you, Karen, for being in the chat and coming in from your perspective as well.